Friend, Shabbat Shalom again to everyone. I just want to explain something. I mean, people have been asking about our continuing wearing our mask on Friday night, and I want to share with you what it's all about. I mean, we're going through a time where people are making all kinds of COVID-19 decisions. Personally, I wear a mask everywhere because I'm still concerned about COVID-19, and as I read the threat is still there. People make other decisions that I respect, but I have to make the decision I think is in my best interest in terms of my own health and my own health issues. Becky and Nathan, they're making their own decisions based on their own health issues, and even though we're close friends, we don't see each other the entire week, and we don't take COVID-19 tests immediately before services, so we don't know who's got what. So to protect each other, all of us wear masks. I know for some people to see the mask, it might be off-putting, but in Jewish tradition, the preservation of life is the ultimate value, and I think all of us need to respect each other's decisions during this complicated time. So I want to explain that. God willing, the COVID will continue to lessen and lessen, but I'll make my decisions about wearing a mask based on what I think is right for me. Next Wednesday night is Purim, and Thursday we will be having a wonderful community event that I keep selling every week, which will include the reading of the book of Esther. A beautiful fable about Queen Esther and how she saved the Jewish people from destruction. Every child knows who the antagonist is. It is Haman. He is, in the story, evil. He is an anti-Semite, and he wants to kill the Jews. And he is a member, according to our understanding of the text, the nation of Amalek. The book of Esther says Haman was a descendant of Agag, the king of the Amalekites. And this Shabbat, the Shabbat before Purim, is called Shabbat Zachor, the Shabbat of remembrance. And it explores why Amalek is considered to be evil. And let me quote you the section from the book of Deuteronomy that is traditionally read in addition to the regular reading for Shabbat. It says, "Remember what the Amalekites did to you along the way when you came out of Egypt. When you were weary and worn out, they met you on your journey and attacked all who were lagging behind. They had no fear of God. When the Lord your God gives you rest from all the enemies around you in the land he is giving you to possess as an inheritance, you shall blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget." So this is a specific mitzvah associated with this Shabbat in preparation for Purim. What made Amalek so reprehensible was that unlike any other enemy who attacked the Israelites fleeing slavery in Egypt from the front, Amalek attacked the rear. This meant that the soldiers would kill women and children, the elderly and the infirm, and in doing so avoid engagement with the soldiers at the front. In this way, he could produce maximum carnage and maximum terror. The moral problem the Bible addresses is that this is not warfare. This is the slaughter of innocents. This is the worst form of terrorism. Why are we called upon to obliterate him as an ongoing mitzvah? There are no Amalekites, obviously, in the world. So what does the commandment mean? Amalek becomes a symbol of radical evil in every generation, and who must be stopped at all cost. This Shabbat is ancient in origin. It's been observed for at least 2,000 years. But could it be more relevant than today? The nation of Russia is today Amalek. They shell hospitals, apartment houses, houses of worship, orphanages. They bomb refugees that are seeking to escape. War is always unacceptable, but sometimes they need to be fought. But there are limits. Murdering children is one of them. There is a profound refugee crisis, and it has no precedent, and it's getting worse. The White House has been quick to send humanitarian and some military aid and to enact punishing sanctions on Russia to cut off Vladimir Putin's ability to easy finance this war. But there is something else the White House must do soon: offer to take in refugees from Ukraine. More than 2 million people have now fled the Ukraine because of the Russian invasion, according to the United Nations. But according to the law, as it stands in the United States, the maximum number of European refugees the U.S. can accept in one financial year is capped at 10,000 people. Think about that. 2 million people who are currently refugees, and it's counting. The United States can take in 10,000. Most of the Ukrainians will not want to come to the United States. Most of them want to remain as in European countries. And God willing, they want to be in a situation where they're able to go back to their country. And obviously, we cannot get in a shooting war with the Russians, but we need to be able to respond to the victims. Americans need to tolerate more than high gas prices. We need to offer refuge. We Jews know about being refugees and not having any place to go. And this has raised an urgent ethical issue in Israel. Rabbi John Rosoff writes weekly, or a wonderful blog where he deals with this issue, and he's been discussing this issue, and this is what he shares, and I want to share it with you. He says, there is a current debate in Israel about who in this crisis ought to be welcomed into Israel. Ukrainian Jews only, or all Ukrainians seeking refuge? Since many Ukrainians have relatives in Israel who are not Jewish, one has to wonder why some Israeli members of the Knesset are refusing to permit these refugees to come into Israel, as well as other refugees with no direct connection to Israel. Minister Shaked said this week, and she's responsible for the issue of immigration, she reaffirmed that only 5,000 non-Jewish Ukrainians would be allowed to enter Israel during this period of time. I hope that this distinction between the Ukrainian Jewish refugees and Ukrainian non-Jewish refugees would be put aside during this conflict, and that all Ukrainian refugees who wish to enter Israel will be allowed to do so, just as I would hope the United States will welcome Ukrainians to our country as a refuge. Now, why must Israel take the lead on this issue? Because others have done it for us. Rabbi Rosoff points to this powerful example concerning the Leica Camera Company. And when you go to the Leica Camera Company's website, they tell this remarkable story, and I'm absolutely certain no one knows this story. Let me quote it. Let me read to you what is on their website. The Leica is the Pioneer 35 millimeter camera. It is a German product, precise, minimalist, and utterly efficient. Behind its worldwide acceptance as a creative tool was a family-owned, socially oriented firm that during the Nazi era acted with uncommon grace, generosity, and modesty. E-Lights Incorporated, designer and manufacturer of Germany's most famous photographic product, saved its Jews. And Ernest Leitz II, the steely-eyed Protestant patriarch who headed the closely held firm as the Holocaust loomed across Europe, acted in such a way as to earn the title the photography industry Schindler. As soon as Adolf Hitler was named Chancellor of Germany in 1933, Ernest Leitz II began receiving frantic calls from Jewish associates, asking for his help in getting them and their families out of the country. As Christians, Leitz and his family were immune to Nazi Germany's Nuremberg laws, which restricted the movement of Jews and limited their professional activities. To help his Jewish workers and colleagues, Leitz quietly established what has become known among historians of the Holocaust as the Leica Freedom Train, a covert means of allowing Jews to leave Germany in the guise of Leitz employees assigned overseas. Employees, retailers, family members, even friends of family members were assigned to Leitz sales offices in France, Belgium, Hong Kong, and the United States. Leitz activities intensified after Kristallnacht in November of 1938, and during which synagogues and Jewish shops were burned across Germany. Before long, German employees were disembarking from the ocean liner Bremen at a New York pier and making their way to the Manhattan office of the Leitz Incorporated, where executives quickly found them jobs in the photographic industry. Each new arrival had around his or her neck the symbol of freedom, a new Leica camera. The refugees were paid a stipend until they could find work. Out of this immigration came designers, repair technicians, salespeople, marketers, and writers for the photographic press. Keeping the story quiet, the Leica family train was at its height in 1938 and early 1939, delivering groups of refugees to New York every few weeks. Then, with the invasion of Poland on September 1st, 1939, Germany closed its borders. By that time, hundreds of endangered Jews had escaped to America thanks to the Leitz effort. How did Ernest Leitz II and his staff get away with it? Leitz was an internationally recognized brand that reflected credit on the newly resurgent Reich. The company produced cameras, rangefinders, and other optical systems from German military. Also, the Nazi government desperately needed hard currency from abroad, and Leitz's single biggest market for optical goods was the United States. Even so, members of the Leitz family and firm suffered for their good works. A top executive, Alfred Turk, was jailed for working to help Jews and freed only after the payment of a large bribe. Leitz's daughter, Elsie Kuhn Leitz, was imprisoned by the Gestapo after she was caught at the border helping Jewish women cross Switzerland. She eventually was freed but endured rough treatment in the course of questioning. She also fell under suspicion when she attempted to improve the living conditions of 700 to 800 Ukrainian slave laborers, all of them women who had been assigned to work in the plant during the 1940s. One more paragraph. Why has no one told this story until now? According to the late Norman Lipton, a freelance writer and editor, the Leitz family wanted no publicity for its heroic efforts. Only after the last member of the Leitz family was dead did the Leica Freedom Train finally come to light. This story, and I'm sure, again, I don't think anyone's heard of it. I never heard of it until Rabbi Rossoff pointed me in its direction. This story summarizes the more imperative of this moment. We Jews must learn from this incredible tale. We must respond to the plight of the Ukrainians. If not, we have no right to castigate the world that failed to save Jews during the Holocaust. I want to repeat that sentence. If not, we have no right to castigate the world that failed to save Jews during the Holocaust. I'm not an Israeli, and I don't vote in Israel, but I hope that Israel will see the moral imperative here. Friends, it is a time of sacrifice. I pray that Israel will do what history calls upon it to do. I pray that our country does what needs to be done. Too frequently we haven't risen to the occasion of opening our borders, our gates to those who are in need. But we can't talk about Ukrainian freedom and the suffering in the Ukraine without somehow recognizing that it's not the entire world except us who has to deal with the refugee crisis. We have to be part of that. And again, I don't believe hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians want to come to the United States. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. We must be welcoming. That's our moral obligation. And I pray that whatever you and I are asked to respond to relating to this need, that we will rise to the occasion. Now, my wife and I have been talking about this, and it's a real conversation. One question I want to leave you with is, if we have a spare bedroom, would we offer it? I mean, let's stop talking about all kinds of esoteric things. If we have a spare bedroom, or 2 spare bedrooms, or a basement where there is space, would we offer that space? If we're called upon to do so, would we do so? To me, that's a serious moral issue. Honestly, I don't know how I'd answer it. It's very complicated. But unless we personalize these moral issues, all the pontification about what's happening really isn't very relevant, is it? There is evil in this world, and we must fight and respond to it. There is no way to compromise with it. That, to me, is the message of Purim this year. I pray for peace, and I pray that all of us who are affronted, pained, horrified by what's happening in this world, that we're able to open our hearts in a way that responds to the need. Shabbat Shalom.